Darling, are you going to the clinic today? Asked a pretty girl with short black hair. You haven't been there for a while, she added, getting out of bed. The girl had just woken up, even though the sun had been shining outside for a long time and it was already 12:30. It was a usual awakening that happened every day. Yes, Sibylle. I'm going right now, replied the man, buttoning his shirt. I need to show up there from time to time. At least occasionally. He smiled then. The man kissed his fiancée, wished her a good day, and then put on an expensive jacket, admired himself in the mirror and smiled at his reflection, as he usually liked to do, and left the house. Leaving the large building, he put on sunglasses and smiled at the new day once more. Then the man got into a black Bugatti, turned on the music, and headed to the place that already belonged to him. This man was none other than Cesar Carmona. He was a very wealthy and influential person with a substantial fortune. His assets amounted to more than several $billion. He was so rich that it was somewhat indecent. Given his fortune, he had no idea what any poverty was. From birth, he had been surrounded only by luxury and gold. All his wishes, no matter how fantastic, strange, or grand they were, came true in the blink of an eye. There was never a time when he was denied anything. This was simply impossible, considering his family's wealth. Besides himself, of course, his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather were all very wealthy people. So who was Carmona? The Carmona family was quite well known in these parts. Many people living in the same city were well aware of this family. Of course, some didn't know about them. But usually, these were people from the outskirts or villages. Therefore, those who knew the family were far more numerous. They were famous for owning numerous private clinics. Cesar was the main owner of another prestigious clinic. Many similarly affluent people often received treatment there. Other influential wealthy individuals were good acquaintances of the man. In fact, only such people could visit this medical facility. From childhood and throughout his conscious life, Cesar naively believed that people with low salaries simply did not make any effort to avoid falling into poverty. His confidence in these thoughts was so firm that he couldn't think otherwise. There was no other explanation. How is it impossible to make enough effort to live well and in luxury? Why don't they try to avoid being poor? What prevents them? I'm not talking about those who are, for example, disabled from birth or due to certain life circumstances. I mean fully healthy people. Those who have 2 hands and feet. Who have a sound mind. Is it really that difficult? Such thoughts circled in the man's head. He usually loved to discuss this aloud in the company of friends. Some of his friends supported him, while some just kept silent, simply not interested in the topic. Cesar simply did not understand that people's salaries do not always depend on their efforts. That they cannot become rich with the snap of a finger. And no matter how much effort they put in, it doesn't always result in high income. But all this, his luxurious life and the upbringing by a nanny, explained a lot. His mother, unfortunately, died early. And his father did not participate well enough in raising his son. Mostly, Cesar was brought up by a specially hired woman. She was always kind to the boy and indulged his every whim. She was paid well. So it would have been a sin to refuse the wishes of a capricious child who understood from a young age how things worked. Since the man always held such thoughts, they extended to the staff of his medical facility. Many were puzzled by these musings but never discussed them out loud. If they did talk about them, it was either infrequently or outside of work. In Carmona's private clinic, nurses and orderlies usually bore the brunt of it. From the wealthy man's point of view, he was doing a noble deed by allowing people with simple higher or specialized secondary education to work in his clinic. To some extent, he was right. After all, getting into such a respectable place, even as a simple orderly, was already a small victory for a hungry fresh college graduate. The main goal was to get into this place. What happened next didn't matter. The work of junior staff has always been genuinely hard. And it wasn't always rewarded. Caesar couldn't possibly have known about this. As mentioned earlier, Caesar never had the chance to peek behind the veil of this luxurious life. Nor did he need to. 15 minutes later, Caesar Carmona finally arrived at his destination in the city. Parking the car and turning off the music, he stepped out onto the street. With a dancing stride, he headed towards the building's entrance. "Good afternoon, Mr. Carmona," greeted the receptionist as soon as she saw the boss enter. She beamed at the man with her professional, dazzling smile. "Hello, Katrina," Caesar said, taking off his glasses. "Did you notice what a beautiful day it is today? The birds are chirping and the sun is shining," he exclaimed, still dancing and humming the tune of a recent song. "I agree. The weather is truly wonderful," the employee replied calmly, unlike Carmona. "How are things here? What's been happening lately? Haven't found any Pokemon by chance?" Caesar bombarded her with questions. He had stopped dancing and stood calmly, leaning on the counter. It couldn't be said that the man was a serious person. He often liked to fool around and joke. He was frequently cheerful and unserious. His trait was to brighten up dull days with laughter. By temperament, he was a true choleric, with frequently changing topics of conversation and moods. He was never gloomy or plagued by melancholic thoughts. Whatever came to his mind immediately found its way to his tongue. But despite all his lack of seriousness, he didn't spare his employees. His behavior this morning was an exception. Katrina was even surprised, but didn't show it. "Things have been as usual lately." "Unfortunately, no Pokemon found," Katrina replied with the same smile. Carmona laughed. "That's a pity. How is Mr. Ray's treatment going?" "As always, at the highest level, I hope," he asked, looking intently at the girl. "Of course, everything is stable. According to the plan, he'll be discharged in 3 days," the girl replied, glancing at the patient's personal file. "That's great. He's a good man, after all. You don't often meet people like him these days. We haven't had a meeting with him for a while." Mr. Ray was a little over 40 years old. He also led an active and wealthy life. But one day he was diagnosed with appendicitis. The surgery to remove it was successful. Now the man was simply under the good care of the doctors. He and Carmona used to have meetings in restaurants or go out of town to shoot ducks. "In a few days, you will have a meeting, Mr. Carmona. Just wait a bit." A call rang out on the office phone. "Sorry, work," Katrina said, quickly smiling again. Of course. Katrina picked up the phone and got distracted from talking to Carmona. At that moment, Caesar leaned on the counter, turning his back to the girl and facing the entrance. Looking to the left side of the corridor, he saw a familiar figure in the distance. One of the clinic's nurses was walking there. Her name was Daniela Perso. But she was not just a nurse. Daniela was literally the only person in the entire clinic who irritated Caesar. The girl didn't just irritate him, she even angered him. But why was that? She always attracted the man's attention. Daniela worked in the trauma department. She was slowly approaching 30. She had been working for about 7 years, but her energy and enthusiasm never waned. Daniela valued her job very much. She treated each patient with kindness and warmth. The girl didn't have a habit of complaining about her salary. If it happened that her bonus was cut in a certain month, she didn't protest such news. From the outside, she was an ordinary worker, fully loving and respecting her job. A girl radiating only light and warmth. She was never seen doing anything bad or wrong. She was literally the ideal being. These qualities were exactly what angered the man. How can a person be content with such hard work? What drives her? Is she constantly waiting for a moment to set someone up and close the clinic once and for all? Or does she have a specific plan? I know. She is clearly waiting for the moment to switch some medication. This way, harm will be done to one of the respected patients. I know such workers. First, they are quiet and fluffy, and then, boom, and that's it. Yes. That's exactly how Caesar thought. In his personal opinion, these thoughts were entirely permissible. One couldn't say that Caesar Carmona was an energy vampire or a sadist, but he certainly seemed to be a paranoid. Sometimes he himself didn't understand why such thoughts crept into his head. But there was nothing the man could do. He just had a strange, unjustified hunch that had no solid ground. It just seemed that way to him. "Hello, Mr. Carmona," Daniela smiled her usual sweet smile. "Hello," Caesar said slowly in a suspicious voice, squinting his eyes. From the outside, it looked amusing, but not to the man himself. Sometimes, he didn't understand how ridiculous he might appear to others. Of course, Daniela noticed this. "Is something wrong?" she asked, sighing and putting her hands in the pockets of her lab coat. "No, everything's fine." "Well, all right," the girl said awkwardly. "Daniela, how long have you been working with us?" 7 years. And always impeccable work. Does that surprise you? It astonishes me. Is that bad? It's strange. Why? Just because. Perhaps the girl herself guessed how Carmona truly felt about her. Or maybe she thought that the man wasn't the smartest person. No one knew her real thoughts. Nonetheless, she never harbored any ill intent towards him. She treated him either neutrally or positively. His behavior towards her sometimes even amused Daniela. "How can one think that people are poor simply because they don't put in enough effort?" she asked her husband. "To me, it's strange. I will never understand that man. What goes on in his head? Only he knows." Caesar was distracted from his conversation with Daniela by a phone call. "All right, I have to run," Caesar said, brightening up. His mood instantly improved. "Today, I finally get to pick up a painting I've been waiting for a long time." "That's great," Daniela said, genuinely happy for the man. "I agree," he replied. "Goodbye," Katrina and Daniela said as they bid farewell to their boss. "Goodbye," Carmona said, already rushing towards the door. "Honey, I'm finally home," the man shouted, entering the house. The sun was setting. Golden reflections of the warm sunset crept into the house through the windows. The wind peacefully rustled the leaves of the trees. And in the hands of the arriving man was a large covered canvas. This was the very painting he had mentioned to the two girls at the clinic. "Hello, Caesar," Cybele said, kissing her fiancé on the cheek. "What's that?" the girl asked, pointing her finger. "A painting." "It's a painting, dear. I'll hang it somewhere here, on the wall in the living room," the man answered, pointing with one hand. "Right in the center." "What's depicted on it?" "You'll see soon." Carmona quickly tore off all the unnecessary wrapping paper and the bag from the long-awaited painting. From the outside, he looked like a little child opening his best gift. "It's Psyche," the man shouted enthusiastically. "Seriously, Caesar? I didn't know you were into this," the girl said, carefully examining the canvas. "It's my favorite artist who's into this. I just collect his precious gifts. It's a true present of our time. Just look at how elegantly everything is depicted. What a beautiful goddess on the canvas." "Hey," the girl exclaimed, poking the man in the side. "After you, of course," he added with a smile. "Tomorrow I'll invite a couple of friends. We'll sit in the living room, have a drink. I must show them this treasure." "All right. I was planning to meet my friends in the city tomorrow anyway. Are you hungry?" "Not particularly." "You're right, Caesar. There's something captivating and mesmerizing about this painting," one of the men said, sitting in an armchair. He was elegantly smoking a cigar and holding a glass of expensive cognac. His head was slightly tilted to the right. It was more convenient for him to examine the canvas this way. "I agree, your artist really has golden hands," said the second friend. "What's his name?" "Maybe I'll order a couple of canvases from him sometime," the first continued. Enrique Torres, Caesar said with a boyish pride. At that moment, he again felt like a child boasting about his best toy. For some reason, I really like these wings, the first said. Indeed, the second friend replied thoughtfully. The wings, shaking the air, lured me every day. I drowned in them, searching for you. Where are you, my lyre? You're a poet. Maybe you should join a circle, the first man asked, laughing. A young talent is being wasted. Caesar, watch out at night. He might come to take your psyche. Haha, very funny, the second friend replied. But she really is beautiful. Tell me, Caesar. Caesar? Carmona didn't respond to his friends. He was intently gazing at the painting. What's wrong with you? Huh? Carmona finally responded. What happened? Are you daydreaming? You're acting strange. No more drinks for him. Everything's fine. I just got lost in thought. Are you sure you're all right? Yes, of course. All right then. By the way, Ria will be discharged from the clinic soon. Oh, how is he, by the way? How did he end up in the hospital? I haven't seen him at all. He's doing well. Recovering nicely, Caesar replied, pouring alcohol into a glass. After all, my clinic isn't run by just any riffraff. 3 days later, Caesar decided to visit his clinic again. On that very day, Mr. Ray was scheduled to be discharged. Upon arriving at the hospital, he stayed in his car for a while. Suddenly, he noticed a peculiar sight. He saw an old, rusty jalopy drive up to the clinic, a vehicle that belonged in a junkyard rather than among these expensive cars. What the? Then, Daniela Perso stepped out of the parked car. Carmona immediately brightened up. He quickly got out of his car. What is that? He asked the nurse, pointing at her car with the hand holding his glasses. Sparks of mischief and amusement began to flicker in his eyes. It's a car, Mr. Carmona. Daniela replied calmly, closing the door. It must be a wreck, not a car. As you wish. This is even funny. It looks like an antique. Come on, admit it, where did you get this? Don't you value your life? How can you trust this rusty heap on wheels? It's older than us. You are a wonder, Daniela. The man went on. And did you notice how ridiculous your car looks among all the others? Daniela didn't respond. She just shrugged and smiled shyly. So where is it from? Caesar asked, stepping closer. It's my husband's old car. I didn't want to sell it. Daniela replied. Caesar laughed again. How is that possible? Your husband doesn't love or care for you. Run away from him, Daniela. No normal loving man would give his partner such a wreck. It's a joke and a disgrace. It's going to fall apart any minute now. Caesar finished his speech and looked at his watch. Then he headed for the entrance. Inside the clinic, he ran into Mr. Ray. They had a great conversation. They decided to meet up on the weekend and finally go out into nature. After chatting with the man, Carmona went to the 3rd floor, where the chief doctor's office was. Caesar needed to discuss an important matter with him. Hello, Mr. Carmona. The elderly man said with a smile, extending his hand in greeting. Hello, hello. Caesar said joyfully, extending his hand in return. I don't often see you in my office. I assume you didn't come here for nothing? Caesar sat in one of the chairs near the desk. Yes, you're right. Carmona agreed. You sit down too, no need to stand. He said kindly. Thank you. So, what's the matter? In short, in a week, a highly respected person will be undergoing treatment at our wonderful clinic. I value him very much. Not just value, I admire him. The man continued with enthusiasm. A relative of yours? No. A fiancé? No, not at all. Caesar replied. He's an artist. An artist? The chief doctor was slightly surprised. Yes. Enrique Torres. Have you heard of him? I think I've heard a bit. They say his works are pure art treasures. Honestly, I even wanted to buy one of his paintings myself. If you do, you won't regret it. And they're right. His works are indeed wonderful, the man said with a touch of delight. He even smiled for a second, recalling the painting in his living room. So, this person will be receiving treatment here. Caesar continued, snapping out of his reverie. No problem. We'll do everything at the highest level. As always. You have nothing to worry about, Mr. Carmona. Yes, you're right, of course. It's just a bit nerve-wracking, you know. I don't even understand why. Everything will be great. Well, that's good. Caesar replied. Then he got up from the chair. By the way, how's our nurse from the trauma department? Which one? Daniela Perso. Nothing noteworthy. As always, impeccable and excellent work. The chief doctor replied. Nothing to criticize. He added with a smile. Really? But still, keep an eye on her, said Caesar. All right. The man nodded understandingly. Thank you. Well, I'll be going then. Goodbye. The man also got up from his chair. Goodbye, Carmona said. By the way, he said, approaching the door. What? Remind me to give you a bonus at the end of the month. For what? The chief doctor asked, a bit surprised. Just because. Caesar smiled. You're a good man. The elderly man smiled again at such flattery. 6 more days had passed. Caesar needed to come to the clinic to sign some documents. Then, near one of the wards, he met Daniela. Hello, Mr. Carmona, she said. Good day, the man replied. Has anyone been poisoned yet? Has anything been done to the equipment? What? Daniela asked with a smile. After all, during her 7 years of work, Daniela had clearly understood one thing. Mr. Carmona was a big, annoying child. She never got too angry at his questions and remarks. Some of his actions, of course, puzzled her, but she just got used to it. It's just that the day after tomorrow, a very important person will be undergoing treatment at our clinic. And I don't want any malfunctions to be discovered on that day. Everything will be top-notch, you know that, the girl said with a smile. I know, of course, I know. And where is your tub? Why aren't you driving it around anymore? Did I offend you that much? Carmona's phone started ringing. Okay, I have to go now, Carmona said. And once again, just in case. Tomorrow is a very important day. I'll come early to check everything myself. All right, Daniela said, raising both hands in a mock surrender and making a serious face on purpose. And watch it. I'm keeping an eye on you. Carmona finally left the girl alone. She went back to her work. The long-awaited D-Day had arrived. Carmona couldn't fall asleep for a long time that night. Kabila, are you asleep? Caesar whispered. Caesar, let me sleep. And you go to bed too, she replied. I can't, Carmona answered, sitting in a chair by the window and spreading his hands. Do you understand, that artist will be undergoing treatment at my clinic? The one. Well, that's wonderful, Kabila answered sleepily. But what if something goes wrong? What a shame it would be. Honey, don't stress yourself out. Everything will be fine. Fine. Everything will be great. This artist, Enrique will thank you immensely and maybe even give you another painting as a token of gratitude, the girl replied in the same sleepy voice. I just can't calm down. Sometimes I get the impression that you're paranoid. Maybe so. Caesar got up from the chair and quickly left the bedroom. What can you do with this man? A true choleric, and a paranoid one at that, Kabila said to herself. She then fell back onto the pillow and finally fell asleep. The next morning, on D-Day, the man's anxiety only doubled. He nervously adjusted his tie while standing in front of the mirror. His appearance was somewhat pale. Caesar, again? Everything will be fine. You know that. And don't be so nervous. You look like you're about to take an exam. I never worried this much for any exam. I can't understand what's wrong. But still, thank you, Kabila. I really am very nervous. Everything will be great. Yes, I will finally be able to talk to him about so many things. About the beautiful and the omnipresent. About paintings and art. About art and creativity. Maybe I'll ask him how he became such a remarkable artist. How he manages to create such works. That's the right attitude. You'll learn many things from him. All right, I'm off, Carmona said, kissing the girl. Good luck. Finally, Caesar headed to the clinic by car. He went in the morning to personally oversee the preparation of the room for Enrique Torres. Due to his anxiety, Caesar didn't even notice that he had driven through a pedestrian crossing earlier than allowed. Fortunately, no one was crossing the road at that moment. Arriving at the clinic, he stayed in the car. Okay, Caesar, the man said, looking in the mirror. Stop going crazy. Everything will be great. Enrique will receive high comfort and be satisfied. The man lightly slapped himself on the cheeks. Get it together, you rag. He'll be here soon, and you look as if your ancestors caught you in some indecent act. After these words, Caesar finally emerged from his car and headed towards the main entrance. Hello, Mr. Carmona, Katrina said. Hello. You look a bit pale. You'd better focus on your work instead of the color of my face, Caesar replied. But is it really noticeable? He asked, softening his tone a bit. Honestly, yes. How much time until his arrival? Caesar asked, glancing at his watch. About 40 minutes, I suppose, Katrina replied. Very soon. All right, I'll go check his room. I'll be back here in half an hour. All right, Mr. Carmona. The man went to check the room. Everything was meticulously prepared. Caesar had nothing to complain about, except that the TV wasn't connected yet. Once Carmona found out, he got angry. But this issue was quickly resolved. Look, I'll cut your salary at the end of the month, he said to two orderlies. Better not to upset me today. Half an hour passed, and he returned. Katrina was still at the reception, with her radiant smile. The chief physician and several staff members were also there. So, is everything ready? Caesar asked as he approached them. Of course, ready, the chief physician said. Excellent. 10 minutes later, a male silhouette appeared at the entrance. He's at the entrance. Enrique has arrived. Everyone put on their professional smiles and greeted the man, already famous within the walls of the clinic. Everyone here had heard of him. Hello, the renowned artist said, taking off his hat. Hello, hello. Caesar exclaimed, shaking Torres's hand vigorously. Such an honor to see you within these walls. We've been waiting for your arrival, counting the minutes and seconds. You flatter me, Enrique said with a calm smile. Let me escort you to your room. Everything is prepared there. If it's not too much trouble. Nonsense, not at all. Don't insult me. Then lead the way, the amazed man smiled again. Do you know where I've placed your beautiful painting? Right in the center of my living room wall. It delights me every new day. You are my personal source of inspiration and muse. I'm simply crazy about all of your works. Each one is better than the last, and the last one is more amazing than the one before. And so Carmona overwhelmed the skilled artist with enthusiastic phrases. The artist barely had a moment to respond, just basked in proud smiles and enjoyed the new word. For Caesar, this man was adored. His works made the heart of the clinic owner skip a beat with delight, and now the author of these breathtaking works was so close to him. "Are you sure Mr. Carmona is straight?" Katrina's friend whispered to her. She worked as a doctor in the clinic. "I'm not sure anymore," Katrina whispered back, giggling. "These rich people are all strange. What's always on their minds? He's supposed to have a fiancée. Maybe she's just a cover? Could be. Well, we'll talk later. We need to work." Yeah. 2 days later, hernia removal surgery was scheduled. Enrique was in good spirits and not at all worried. He knew he was in the hands of professionals. Moreover, Caesar constantly doted on him. Carmona was always concerned about the artist's well-being and offered to do anything for him. "So, how did the operation go?" asked Caesar as soon as the surgeon emerged from the operating room. "Everything went wonderfully," the man replied, a little startled by the unexpected appearance of his boss. "That's good," Carmona replied happily. "Excuse me, Mr. Carmona, but I need to get back to work." Of course. Thank you for another successful operation." "Thank you," the surgeon replied calmly. And finally, Enrique began to recover after the surgery. Mostly, he spent his time in his room. One day, Caesar decided to visit him. He knocked on the door and then opened it. "Hello, Enrique. Am I disturbing you?" The artist lay on the hospital bed. His mood was excellent. "Hello, of course not, Mr. Carmona. Please, come in." "Thank you," Caesar replied, excitedly. "How are you feeling? I hope everything is okay? Nothing hurts?" "Yes, there's no need to worry. Leave it be. Your doctors are the best and know their business." Then they talked for about half an hour on various topics about art. "Do you attend art exhibitions?" Enrique asked Caesar. "Yes, I love it," Carmona replied. "Sometimes I feel sad that I can't be such a creator myself. Creating beautiful paintings is not given to everyone. But you don't need to think or not think. Just try buying a canvas and some paints. Perhaps inspiration will come to you on its own. You won't even notice how you depict something on the canvas. That's how it happens to me, for example. You know, I'll give it a try." "Definitely. Of course. Clear your mind and paint with pleasure. What could be better? I'll definitely try now. Will you promise to come to my exhibition, if there's one?" "Of course, I'll come," the artist chuckled. Suddenly, in the middle of the conversation between the two men, the nurse named Daniela Perso burst into Enrique's room. At first, Caesar glanced at the girl for a moment, then returned to the conversation. But then he looked at Daniela again. The man realized that she was Daniela Perso. What is she doing here? She works in the trauma department. And this is surgery. Could my suspicions be serious? For some reason, the girl smiled. "Daniela," Enrique suddenly said. Caesar looked at the patient. Now he was very surprised. How did Torres know her name? "Please call me on the phone. I can't seem to find it." As if it disappeared into a parallel world, he continued. "What does this all mean?" Carmona didn't say anything at that moment. He just watched. He just watched how, for some reason, the artist knew this girl by name. Moreover, he asked her to call him on the phone. And talked as if they had known each other for 100 years. "I'll call right away," Daniela immediately replied. Carmona looked at him, then at her. Then again at him. What's happening here? How do they know each other? They. Carmona heard the vibration sound behind him. He slowly turned his head and saw the artist's phone. The word lit up on the display. Beloved. Wait, what? Oh no. She's his beloved. How is this possible? Enrique Torres looked at the phone, then at Caesar's face. Carmona's face now showed complete confusion and bewilderment. Torres, on the other hand, smirked, glancing at Daniela. And the girl started smiling again. "Mr. Carmona?" Enrique's voice suddenly broke the silence. "Yes?" Caesar said quietly. "Do you happen to like vintage Impala cars?" Carmona immediately covered his face with one hand out of immense embarrassment. Even his face turned slightly red. He had never been in such a ridiculous situation before. But how could this be? I don't even know how to express my apologies. But I still want to apologize. I'm sorry for this whole situation. I didn't know what I was doing. Sorry again. Oh, come on, Mr. Carmona. We're not some executioners to torment you, Enrique laughed. And we won't torture you. Probably, Torres laughed again, seeing the serious expression on the man's face. Carmona was ready to die on the spot. But the couple just laughed innocently. No one was offended. Forgive me again. Oh God, I don't even know what else to say. It's all right, Enrique replied calmly. And could you tell me everything in detail? Because I don't quite understand. Of course not, Torres said seriously. Caesar blushed again. I'm joking. Of course, we'll tell you, the man said cheerfully. What interests you? Well, honestly, everything. About the car and everything else. Well, it was like this, Enrique began. Once I decided to go to an exhibition in that very car. But unfortunately, a ridiculous accident happened. The car was damaged. Its commercial look turned into just something. I was thinking of selling it for pennies. But my sweetheart Daniela unexpectedly declared that she wants to keep it for herself. The girl approached her beloved and sat down next to him. This car means a lot to me, actually. It's precious because it reminds me of the best and most enjoyable times. Of all the countless trips spent together with my dear one. I was prepared for the contemptuous glances 100%. I'm not particularly bothered by whispers and incomprehensible looks. But why do you have different last names? Perso and Torres? Why does Danielle need to toil away at this thankless job? I have so many questions. The man and the girl laughed again. Well, Enrique Torres is my personal pseudonym, the artist said. Oh, really? But what's your real name then? Caesar asked eagerly. Marian Perso. Pleasure to meet you, Marian. The artist chuckled. Likewise, Caesar. And what about your wife's job? Caesar continued to inquire. It's my hobby, Danielle simply replied. Hobby? Caesar asked again. Yes. I don't like sitting at home all the time and wasting away within four walls. I really enjoy helping people. Helping those who are currently in pain, scared, or feeling bad. It's like I see my calling in it. Money doesn't concern me at all. This mission is very valuable to me. You impress me more and more. More and more, said Mr. Carmona. Mr. Carmona, I want to ask one more question. I feel like I just have to ask you, Marian suddenly asked. Of course, Caesar replied. Why didn't you recognize my wife? Marian asked suddenly. What? Caesar asked in confusion. How was I supposed to recognize her? You don't remember? Not at all? How is that possible? I don't quite understand, Caesar said slowly. Suddenly, the girl quickly moved away from the two men. She stood by the opposite wall. And just as quickly, the girl made another face and stood in a certain pose. A very familiar pose. Quick flashes of memories began to rush through the man's head. For a moment, even the smile vanished from his face as he realized everything. Fully and in every detail. Could it be? Yes, exclaimed Danielle. The painting in his living room. The painting praised by his friends and himself. Psyche, depicted on it, the very Psyche whom his acquaintance composed poems about. The same one his acquaintance might have fallen in love with. After a minute's pause, the man slapped his forehead. It was so obvious it was embarrassing. How could he not understand this? That's why the girl's face from the painting seemed so familiar yet alien at the same time. She was simply embodied in a different form. Psyche. Caesar murmured quietly. By the way, Psyche in a Greek white robe with delicate butterfly wings on her back and a rich floral wreath on her head, the girl exclaimed. I have no words, only emotions. You are beautiful in this painting, Caesar said. Thank you, the girl smiled. They even wrote poems for you. Is that so? This is the first time I hear about my painting like that, Marion said. So, it really turned out well. And all because my lyre is depicted on it. All three of them laughed at the situation together. It was already getting dark outside. Danielle needed to finish her work tasks. Caesar said goodbye to the artist and left the room with the girl. Danielle. I would like to apologize to you again, Caesar said. You've already apologized, Mr. Carmona. It's okay, Danielle replied. No, I still want to apologize again. Apologize for all my jabs and suspicions, for the endless interrogations and lack of trust. I even asked the head doctor to keep an eye on your work. How absurd and awkward. The nurse's face became even more serious. After all, she saw for the first time how a rich man was apologizing and admitting mistakes in front of her. It flattered her. It seemed the grown-up child was starting to stop being just a child. In his eyes, she saw complete seriousness and acceptance of his own mistakes. Apparently, today he managed to understand a lot. I forgive you, Mr. Carmona, Danielle replied. You can just call me Caesar, honestly. Okay. Caesar, I forgive you. But I need to work. Of course. Danielle stepped back a few meters. Oh, by the way, Caesar suddenly said. The girl turned her face towards him. You've become an amazing Psyche, the man said kindly, smiling. Thank you, the girl from the painting replied with a smile. She left the man in the corridor and finally went back to work. It's no wonder they wrote poems about you, Caesar said into the void. He laughed at the whole situation and finally went downstairs. Today was a strange and funny day. Carmona understood a lot. Perhaps he really needed to soften his attitude towards the staff. He might simply not know various things happening in these people's lives. Goodbye, Mr. Carmona, Katrina bid farewell. Until tomorrow, Katrina, the man said goodbye. Have a good evening, he added. And you. Her friend immediately approached Katrina. You see how much time he spent with his artist. I'm telling you, he's not a fake. Maybe, Katrina said thoughtfully. The artist's recovery was going very well, and Caesar's character had noticeably softened. He realized that some people might work for peanuts only for the sake of helping others, self-realization, and the desire to make the world a little better. Now he treated each of his male and female employees warmly. There were now much fewer scandals, nitpicking, and reproaches. The man calmly explained any problems. It had been 6 whole months since the artist was discharged, and overall, since the whole situation. It was already December on the streets. And soon it would be New Year's. One day, Kabila was returning home. She met a young guy at the porch. He was a courier. Hello, are you here for us? She asked. Yes. A package has arrived for you, he replied. Strange. I don't think we ordered anything, the girl answered. Well, come inside. Maybe Caesar ordered something. The two of them entered the house. Darling. A package arrived for you, the girl shouted. A package? Caesar, peeking out from the bath, asked bewilderedly. What package? I didn't order anything. Well, maybe it's a gift. Carmen put on his robe and fully stepped out of the bathroom. He approached them. "Good day," Caesar said, looking at the guy. "Hello. You need to sign here," the worker said, pointing to a piece of paper in the document. "And where is it from anyway?" "I was told to inform you to read the sender's name on the package yourself." "This is all very strange," Caesar said. Then he finally saw a familiar pseudonym on the package. "Enrique Torres," he said with a smile. Caesar took a pen and signed in the required place on the paper. "Goodbye. And happy holidays," the guy said. "Goodbye." The young man left the house. "Is that the same artist?" Kabila asked. "Yes. I told you he would give us some painting. Though it's been a while. But it's okay. Better late than never. But maybe it's not a painting at all. What else could it be? I'll go wash my hands, and you unpack it." "Okay," the man said, approaching the couch. He took scissors and impatiently began to unpack the package, but then he froze. There was indeed a canvas inside. But what was depicted on it? Kabila came out of the bathroom. "What's this?" "Ha ha." The girl's laughter didn't subside. She even grabbed her stomach. "It's you." "Ha ha." "Yes, dear." Caesar scratched his head. "I must say, your artist's painting is quite successful." The painting depicted none other than Harlequin. The real Harlequin with Carmen's face. Along with the painting, there was also a letter, which Caesar immediately opened. To Caesar Carmona, the most cheerful and amusing person. "Good day, Mr. Carmona. If you hold this letter in your hands, then you've already seen our gift. We can only imagine your expression. And frankly, it just amuses and delights us more and more. Of course, you know that Harlequin is a comedic character who plays tricks on other characters. So, we think you've got the gist of it. We bet you're very surprised by your new painting. This gift will adorn one of your walls. Accept it and show it to your friends. Maybe, while drinking alcohol, one of your friends will compose another poem. If so, send it to us by mail. We're not mad at you at all. We bear no grudges or malice, but we just had to tease you like this. Have a great holiday season, and until we meet again, Happy New Year. Yours, Marian and Daniela Perso. Sabella had already prepared her phone to take a picture of the painting. I simply must post this on my page. My friends will absolutely appreciate it, she exclaimed. Darling, are you serious right now? Caesar interjected as he finished reading the letter. Yes. Oh no, Carmona sighed, realizing what was happening. Why not? Are you kidding me? No. After all, it's your precious artist who wrote it. Not painted, but wrote. Oh, I see. Yes. And anyway, I'll place this painting in the bedroom. In the bedroom? Yes, in the bedroom. Let no one see it. But what about your friends? Don't you want to show them this wonderful painting? Sabella asked, laughing. She found Caesar's expression even more amusing, which sent her into another fit of laughter. Not in this lifetime. No one should see it. Not even your friends. Caesar exclaimed, taking the phone from the blushing Sabella. That's unfair. Especially since I've already seen it. All right, that's enough laughing, the man said with a smile. But you're enjoying it too. Well, maybe a little. Ha ha. Carmona finally took the canvas and carried it to their bedroom. He hung the painting on the wall, looked at himself once again as a harlequin, and then placed his hands on his hips. There's Marian. He's a real charmer. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, please support the video by liking it and leaving a comment. Thank you very much.